Really working.
I was only going to tell you what I wanted for Christmas.
There you go.
No, I'm saying I'm going to laugh.
You always do that. I better this yeah,
Oh, you're on the flash.
No soccer.
Does he golf all the time? Take him to Topsail over there to practice.
I'm glad I didn't wear mine today because I was wearing it
You were
yesterday.
going to wear it? Is that what it was?
I wore it yesterday by back.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, we're not like that, ladies. Oh, no, I can't wear it. You're wearing it. You can show up there because you know the wear.
My brother.
Now she drives a peg.
Right, she's in Roslyn. Done show her to my hometown. Roslyn.
I seen you again.
I know when the kids are playing. No, I'm 2 hours away.
I can't see it.
If you turn the lights on,
That's it. So cool.
I started to
No, but it was, but that's good because I was like,
think she's gonna come when I get leave.
What we should be expecting.
I'd like to call to order the South San Antonio Independent School District Special Call Meeting. Today is Wednesday, February 1st, 2017, and the time is 6 p.m. Michelle, roll call, please.
Mrs. Angelina Seguin,
Present.
Mr. Luis Ibarra Jr., Mrs. Linda Longoria,
Present.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra,
Here.
Mrs. Connie Prado,
Present.
Mrs. Helen Mandel Prater,
Here.
Mrs. Elda Flores.
Present.
Thank you. Let's please stand. We're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Longoria, could you read the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Texas pledge.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the United States, one state, under God, one nation.
Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for all your blessings and guidance. For everyone in this room, we all serve a greater purpose, and that is the purpose to serve the purpose of the kids of South San. Please watch over us during this board workshop. Please unite us in our passion for students, and please, we just thank you for your grace in being together where we're all very healthy and happy. In your name we pray. Amen. All students will enjoy successful education experiences to empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives and the future they create.
The board will now go to closed meeting pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.081.
That's the whole point, that's why I'm supposed to get to a walk coming to get on there. It's not like there's word for it. And one of us has to write. Of course, control and ask right now.
Okay, you're back in closed session. The time is 6:55. And the board would, President, is there a motion to be made for action item number 1?
I'd like to make a motion to uphold the level 2 grievance decision.
Okay, so there has been a motion by Mr. Luis Ibarra. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And there's been a second by Mrs. Elda Flores.
Roll call, Madam Chair.
Roll call, please. Michelle?
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel Prater,
Yes.
Mrs. Prado,
No.
Mrs. Guerra,
No.
Ms. Longoria,
No.
Mr. Ibarra,
Yes.
Ms. Ostigui.
Yes. So the motion passes. So now we're going to go into discussion, possible action, which is the workshop. No, sorry, the work session. The board will conduct a workshop to consider and discuss the board's direction concerning the Lone Star Governance Framework and the school district strategic process. Dr. Saavedra?
Ms. Ostigui, members of the board, we scheduled this workshop to further discuss the process and the structure that the board learned through the Lone Star Governance training a few weeks back. The board spent 2 days in training. I think through the way I interpreted the response of the board, it seems like the board members were very enthused about the training. It was really good material, and the board would like, from what I understand, board members would like to put some of those practices into place. Now, we set up the boardroom in the horseshoe fashion, like we usually do workshops back down on the floor. The choice is yours whether you want to conduct this workshop at those tables or up here. Either way it works, and then we're going to have discussion, and whatever you want to do in reference to where you want to sit.
Horseshoe or? I'm for the horseshoe.
We're for the horseshoe? Okay. So maybe we move down there and we'll start the workshop. Okay. start with, in the 2 days of training that the board went through, there's really a lot of information was covered. And a lot of new concepts were introduced. And my understanding was that the board liked these new concepts, and we wanted to move in that direction. As I gave some thought to some of the work that's already been done in the district, specifically our strategic process that the board adopted a year and a half ago, I wanted to make sure that we could basically fold the work that we've done into this new process, this new structure. And if you might recall, even at the workshop in Austin, I asked a question to the facilitator, Mr. Crabbill, concerning that, and he had already looked at some of the material. He was a little convinced that it wouldn't be that difficult to basically follow the Lone Star governance process on the work that we had already done. So with that, I'm going to call first of all on Belinda Costa and have her walk us through the strategic process that we have in place and how it fits into this framework that you learned about at the workshop. And at any time, stop me or her, ask whatever questions, and because this is a workshop, this is just dialogue between all of us, so feel free to ask questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra. Good afternoon, good evening. Because of this rich dialogue around student outcomes, we invited, directors and principals. That way they could also hear the discussion. We're very excited to see the learning that y'all had from the Lone Star governance. And so I'd like to go to 6, if you can. So when I read this, and I read it about 4 times, yeah, there you go. Or a little bit bigger. There you go, perfect. I looked at these 9, the workshop intentions, and these 9. And so looking at this, trying to look at our strategic design and our district improvement plan and how that, like Dr. Saavedra said, how that folds in. So it seems so much about, student outcomes. Student outcomes. So if you would look at, what I did is I only copied pages 1 through 16 of our strategic design and district improvement plan. And I'm actually going to start on page 12 of this document. So what we did, and these are just samples. If it's in black, that means it's a sample. If it's in blue, you'll see under measured outcomes, that means it's in the superintendent's evaluation. So one thing that we looked at, and if you can go to page 27, one thing we looked at is a lot of the things that are in this, the student outcomes goal and goal progress measures, we have those in our campus action plans. So every key action they have an indicator of success. And I believe I shared a sample action plan, Shepherd's action plan last time I was here. And so as we're looking at the work we're already doing, we see that we have a lot of this, what's expected here. We just didn't have it here. So I had it more on every campus, and I have it on my directors, their action plan, their goals. So what we did is we took these samples, and under each goal, you'll see we added what's called measurable outcomes. And again, the black are samples. We just took off the samples of what we have here. So if you can now switch to the other one. We're going to the, yes, page 12. No, not that one. Go to the word. There you go. Okay, so this right here, perfect. So as you see, we said we had, this was goal 1, we will engage all school community members through transparency and effective communication to create an inclusive environment for all students. As we look at those specific results we want, then we looked at the samples from the Lone Star governance and created measurable outcomes. Again, samples. So in the black font, participation in school academic nights will increase by 5%. A parent university will be held twice a year in order to increase parent involvement and transparency with the school community. 40% of parents are accessing parent portal. Identify a minimum of 3 business partners in the community. By 18-19, increase to 12 active business partners. So the last one you see, by the end of 2018-19 school year, customer survey results shall meet or exceed 90% satisfaction. That is actually in the superintendent's evaluation. So I thought it fell under, this particular fell under goal 1. So if you could go to goal 2 and 3. There you go. One more. Yeah, one more. Okay, that was right. Right? One more?
That's 2 and 3.
There we go, okay. So for goals 2 and 3, they're both primarily about instruction, innovative teaching, problem solving. And so if you notice, all of the blue again are from the superintendent's evaluation. So some of the things we came up with based on our outcomes, we talked about UIL. So we thought maybe percent of elementary students participating in at least one co-curricular activity will increase from 5% to 8%. Percent of middle school students participating in at least one co-curricular activity will increase from 5% to 8%. 85% of all first grade students reading at above grade level by April each year. This is actually already an expectation of our principals. Decrease the performance gap by 1% between Hispanic and white students. That was the sample that was given by the Lone Star Governance. We actually looked at that. We don't have that big of a gap between our Hispanic and white students because we just don't have a lot of white students. We're majority Hispanic. And so when we did analyze those, like where is the gap? I think we found one that was 6%. So as far as between student groups, that, you know, academically we don't really have a huge gap like where other districts may have. But all of the blue are right now in the superintendent's evaluation. So we added these measures actually fit under goals 2 and 3.
Let me stop you there.
Yes, sir.
And I believe we presented this at the new board orientation, the new board members that went through the orientation. There's a lot of outcomes and specific goals already identified, as you know. I mean, the board members that participated in student evaluation for the last several years, there's a whole list of things that we've tried to perform on. And the principals in the exchange also have the same type of goals to coordinate. And that says we try to row the boat in the same direction. And that becomes really important because that, unless you pay attention to it, that doesn't happen. In many districts, there's different goals at different levels, but they're not necessarily aligned to each other. And in the district here, we've tried to align that. And in the workshop with AJ, there's a lot of discussion about that, about whatever goals and outcomes are established, that everyone in this district understands what they are, so that we're all basically rowing the boat in the same direction. So that's why it becomes important. So for the district, it certainly has not been lack of goals and lack of outcomes, because I've laid those out for a period of time now. It's really more of how do you align them to the new framework, as well as are there others that the board members might feel, you know, might be lacking, you know, or they feel we ought to pursue something different. Goals and objectives and outcomes are dynamic. They're meant to be a living document, to change from year to year. What's important is that we not change them in the middle of the year. You know, I mean, that we not start and say, by the way, I changed my mind, because again, the whole organization is rowing the boat in the same direction, and changing it in mid-year would be very, very difficult. So go ahead.
So I won't read through all of them, but again, the blue are what's been board approved for the superintendent's evaluation. So go ahead and go to goal 4. So goal 4 is about we will recruit, attract, retain, and develop exceptional personnel in order to accomplish the goals of the school community. And as we looked at this, and we looked at the samples, and again, we need to massage this a little bit more, but what we came up here is maybe we did find a need with teacher attendance, and maybe a goal needs to be, maybe we need to put some incentives around, you know, teachers who don't miss a day of work, you know, maybe there could be a little bonus at the end, and therefore that would increase teacher attendance by 5%. So go ahead and goal 5. So goal 5 is about district revenues and guiding future choices. And again, these were samples from the Lone Star governance. Fund balance ratio, percent of overall budget represented by the fund balance will decrease or increase by a certain percentage. Percent of budget representing use of reserve funds to balance budget will decrease from a certain percentage. Percent of variance between final budget and actual will decrease from a certain percentage. And then goal 6 will promote and ensure a safe and secure learning environment for all students. Can you go to the next one? What we have is percent of out-of-school suspensions decrease from X to Y by, 2020, let's say, if it's, a 3 or 4 year. Percent of students removed to an alternative setting will decrease. So we thought maybe something like around that would be a way to measure our goal 6, if we've achieved it or not. So with that, that's all I really have. I was going to turn it over to Associate.
So keep it in mind that the 6 goals are 6 goals that really were adopted by the board. It'll be 2 years in May. It's about a year and a half at this point. The goals are very broad. They're meant to be broad. They're broad by design. The outcomes, on the other hand, are specific. That's what you really start to measure, is what are the outcomes that have been identified to reach those goals, and whether it's a handful or whatever it may be. You might recall Mr. Crabville talking about, in reference to goals, I think he said it ought to be no more than 3. I forget exactly what the number was, but I think he said no more than 3. In our case, we have 6, all right? But again, they're very, very broad, but there's 6 that touch real important areas, whether it's community engagement in goal 1, whether it be the instructional program in goal 2, goal 3, 2 and 3 are both instructional in nature, which is very, very important. And then 4, we talk about attracting personnel, hiring the right people, training them, and so forth. Goal 5 talks about being efficient and good use of district resources. And then 6, of course, is safety and security of our kids. Every single one becomes important, So, although it's contrary to what he was suggesting, that you should have no more than 3 goals, if we were forced to do 3 goals, most likely I would try to fold all 6 of these into 3, And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that we take to heart what the intent of the training is. Whether or not we cross every single T and dot every single line specific to that framework that AJ had, I'm not too certain that that's all that important. What's important is that we take to heart the intent of what we're trying to do. So I have no difficulties. It's up to you as a board whether we stay with 6 goals or whether we want to fold 6 goals into 3 or 4 or something less than 6.
Let me add to that. In speaking with Dr. Svedra and Linda, I'm not opposed to these goals, okay? What I wanted us as a board to decide is which of these do we want to be reported on in our meetings for us to staff to get, their reports. Remember, they're the ones who choose how to report to us. We set the goal, and then they report to us, okay, and the outcomes and inputs and outputs and stuff. And so based on the goals that we have, like Dr. Svedra said, they are broad, but we can customize them within that goal, like a sub-goal, to, get information that we want, that we can attain as a district.
These are my thoughts. If we're going to take this district to the level where it needs to be for students, then we need to be looking at student outcomes, and that's what I want to see. Everything else is operational. He hires a superintendent, he hires a staff to run the district. However, it's the product that we put out there, which are our students, that to me is the most important thing. I studied further the Texas Academic Performance Report.
Okay.
And remember at the last meeting I said I have so many questions, but it would take me.
Sure.
However, Mr. Ibarra touched on some of those at the secondary level. I feel now, this is just me, that we need to add under this, when you said, you're comfortable with the goals, but then we can still add more, and I'm zeroing in now at the high school level,
Okay.
because I'm looking at post-secondary readiness.
Okay.
And if we say that we're a district that is preparing students to be college and career ready, you look at page 12 of this report, and your college-ready graduates, we're only having 18% of those students who are college-ready graduates, compared to the Region 20, 33%, compared to the state, that's 38%. I see that as a problem that we need to focus on. That's a big need, that's an immediate focus that I'd like to see it be measured, because if we're promoting ourselves as putting kids to be college ready out there, then this data here does not reflect that.
Sure.
Okay, so that's very important to me. Also, I feel that we're going to be going into a new accountability system,
Right.
which we can fight it all we want, the A through F,
Right.
but it's going to happen. The legislature has all the right, and we have to follow. I know from experience, because accountability changes,
Sure.
over the years. And that domain right there, the fourth domain, is where we fail. That's where
Sure.
we're making the D and the F
Right. Right.
in that post-secondary.
Sure.
That's how we're going to be judged. So I personally, that's me, that's what I would like to see.
Okay.
So if I could piggyback on what
Sure.
she's saying, I think we need to evaluate our goal, and I'm with you that we don't change everything mid-year, but we do need to focus, by definition, we want to have a baseline, a target, a population, and a deadline.
Sure.
So specifically to what she's talking about, the A to F rating, and the fact that domain 4 is at 35%, I think, of the score, we need to focus one of our goals immediately on improving that percentage and being able to measure that right now till the end of the year. I think that's important. So when looking at these 6 goals, they're broad, and I understand why, but I think this structure gives us a more specified target, and then it's something that we can measure every meeting. Instead of trying to measure 8 things, we're measuring 1 or 2 things, and it's an attainable goal, so that principals and teachers and everybody kind of feels like we can accomplish something, instead of having 30
Yeah.
measurable outcomes that is a little
Sure.
overwhelming. So I think if we kind of focus and specify our goals and target what's going to be in our immediate, future, the A and F rating, A to F rating, or if we don't want to reevaluate all our goals right now, at least, adjust a couple.
Sure.
Is what I think we should do. And that's just my opinion as well.
Well, one thing to keep in mind, as Ms. Ostaguin stated, identifying the focus, and college readiness learning should be one. We can identify, just say, 3 focus areas, and you as a board will decide what those are, that are student-centered and have student outcomes. I think we do that. Now, you're right in that what we measure right now is a lot of stuff. All right, we do, because if you recall, the board members have been here the longest. As we develop the student evaluation, every year it's kind of like everyone gets to say whatever they want to say, and we add it, and we add it, and we add it. And so we may want to clean some of that up so that we do concentrate on the 3 major focus areas. Not to forget the others, don't get me wrong. I mean, you can't let the district go down the drain. You still have to pay attention to the efficiency and those type of things. But the focus should be on let's say the 3 areas, the 2 or 3 areas that you as a board feel we have to focus on.
Well, Dr. What I picked up from when we went was exactly what they're saying is we as a board focus on 3. You as a superintendent and your staff, you've got everything else.
Yeah, we got it.
But it's like the other thing was that we had 6 goals, and the goals when we looked at them during that conference, they weren't measurable. They were too vague, and that was what my understanding was, that the board wanted to come and do 3 that we could, one being what we as a board could focus on, and then you as a superintendent, that's your bag over there.
Deal there.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, and those are defined as well.
Yes.
Those are constraints, and those are clearly defined in here, and we should have those. We don't want to sacrifice buildings and
Right.
facility maintenance over, or because we're focusing on education, but the focus needs to be education.
Absolutely.
At not the expense of everything else. But like she's saying, that falls on them.
But
Now,
everything
those-
is too, is at not the expense of any, those are in your evaluation. So it's not like they're gonna be forgotten because they're not, they're on your
Yeah,
evaluation.
you'll remind me.
Right, and all I'm saying is that those are also defined in the workshop as constraint measures. So we have a bunch of that in there. It's just how we organize it and reword it that is gonna make all the difference. But all I'm saying is narrow our goals and focus on what is gonna be, I think, an immediate problem, which is A through F rating, and grow from there for next year. But something that's gonna impact us pretty quick is that rating. And honestly, some of that may be coding. I mean, I don't know, we're lacking in some areas, I think, because we do have college and college-ready courses and 2 avenues that we take for dual credit. We just haven't maybe put them where they need to go or coded correctly, but I still think that we're gonna lack in some areas to attain the right rate, the right grades.
So piggybacking on what you said, coding, back to what I studied, there's a mismatch on the percent of graduates. You have 85% graduates, but then you only have 18% that are college ready, so there's a mixed match here. I'm wondering also if that could be a coding error, like Mr. Ivan is saying, where there's courses that these kids are taking that are really not named appropriately.
Right.
Okay? That's something to look at. That's a possibility to look at, because we need to prepare ourselves for the ratings when they come out and make sure that that's not the issue. Okay, but that that it's, so we need to be.
One of the things that we'll need to do, the staff will need to do, is come back at one of these workshops that I think we're going to have to complete now every month. And for example, college readiness, the 4th domain, talked about that domain specifically in detail as to what exactly is being measured in that domain.
Right.
And also keeping in mind that the new accountability system remains dynamic. It could be something different come next year. But for right now, it is what it is, and that's what we need to pay attention to. But there is that possibility that it could also change, But yeah, I think we need to have further discussion on that.
Mr. Runn, I have to agree with everything I'm hearing, especially on the college readiness. Mr. Crabtree, in his presentation, also reminded us that as board members, just like the data that you have, that is crucial that we have access to this data, because that tells us whether or not we're progressing or not. So as far as the goals, the 6 goals, I think because this is already February, to right now midstream go from 6 to 3, I think would be a mistake. I think it's something we need to consider for next year, maybe streamlining our goals like TEA wants us to do. But I think it's important that the board be kept abreast by staff on reports on college readiness. How are our 9th graders doing? Because we're responsible for that.
Sure.
So is it going to be a little longer meeting? And I know that he's always said keep your meetings short. But if we can at least get the data so that we can ask questions at the meeting, and that's the only way we're going to know are our programs working or not? Where are our kids? Where do they stand? And we're going to have the end of course coming up. The final STAR tests are coming up. We need to know where are we now. That's why I asked Mr. Hernandez from the high school, where are we on college readiness? I want to see data. This is the 2nd year going on, and I know they're not going to graduate for another 3 or 4 years, but we have to keep on top of these kids.
Sure.
How many are falling off that are not completing their career path? So we need to keep on top of that.
One of the things that I think we'll need to do on a regular basis, and actually put on the agenda for the board to act on it monthly, is specifically what are the areas Julie reports on? Because I'll be honest with you, the way it's worked up to this point is a board member says, I want to report on something, and we do those reports. And it really ought to be what the board as a whole, and that means a vote, as to what exactly you want, you know?
And that's true, that's why we're having this workshop,
Right.
because we want, I mean, on top of everything they already have to do, it's a lot. And so I kind of disagree with you, Mrs. Bravo. The goals are already set, yes, but we can still ask for specific goals and be reported on. And so you express an interest in college readiness. We can be specific under that. You want to know how ninth grade is doing, you know, and have the administration come back and say, okay, well, this is what we're going to measure, and this is how we're going to give you those inputs and outputs. And then we've already set a target, we've set a baseline, and they follow through. But we don't have to just stick with college readiness, you know, because yes, I'm for college readiness, but I'm interested in the elementary kids. I'm interested in reading. You know, how are they doing in reading? And, you know, for all campuses, but maybe for the first 3 months, we reported on several campuses, because we have 10 elementaries. You know, and to be bombarded at one meeting with all 10 elementaries, I think it's too much. But to focus on 3 elementary schools for, you know, a certain grade, not all grades, that's my intention of having this workshop, is as a board coming together and deciding what is our 3 focus areas that we are wanting to focus on. And this is like Dr. Sidler said, it's ongoing. You know, this is not cut and dry, it doesn't go like this for the next 5 years. No, this is something that is always ongoing. You know, we need it, if we attain the goal, then let's make another goal.
Well, the data will determine our weaknesses.
Yes.
And where we want to focus, immediate focus, and that's what we should do.
So I think, you know, what we were talking about, specifying goals, the goal could be as specific to say that we want X amount of improvement by X date on STAR reading test, which would encompass all the areas that are tested, all the grade levels that are tested. And then you could get reports on all those areas, and it would fall under that goal. And you'd be getting reports for all different elementary, middle, and high school on the same subject.
Right.
So we can do that. I mean, we can specify that and get data from all levels of education, and still, I think, attain some good results this year, implementing some of this.
Sure.
So that we stay more specific and we implement now. But, I mean, I guess what we have to do is probably think about it and maybe come up with 2 or 3 items that you want to see as goals. And then we could come up with our goal progress measures from there. Because, I mean, I think everybody kind of agrees that we do need to focus instead of broaden our goals.
Any other ones? Any other feedback?
Well, then also on that point is any reports that we give them prior to the board meeting. Because another thing that he did specify was our board meetings sometimes were till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And that this way we have read everything. Yeah, we still get the presentation. And I think that also limiting our questions to the presenter is going to be a major thing that we need to change.
So, along those lines, one thing that was changed already at Ms. Ostigui's request is when you get the agenda. You've been getting the agenda Friday before the meeting. Starting with the February 15th meeting, you'll get it 2 Fridays before the meeting. Meaning this coming Friday, in 2 days, you'll get the agenda for the 15th. So you'll have, 2 weeks or so with the agenda.
So it'll be after the workshop, after the scheduled workshops, 2 weeks before. We'll get it at that time, or?
Well, the agenda for the regular meeting, which is the middle of the third Wednesday of the month, you will be receiving it 2 Fridays prior.
So that's 7
More
work.
than 7 days.
Not counting weekends, I'm saying 7.
Oh,
Yes.
seven business days.
Right.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Well, it would be 10.
Yeah, 10, more like
It would be
10,
like 10.
well, 10 total days.
10,
Right.
10 total days, yeah.
Yeah, but
No, 10, 5 and 5.
Well, that actually what comes up with a policy, right? If you can't put anything on there anyway,
2
right?
days and this
For 10
week,
days.
5 days.
Yeah, that would have to change, the policy would have to change.
But, I mean, I'm not worried about that, I'm just saying, so when does the agenda get posted so that everybody can see it?
It's gonna be whenever
Whenever it
it gets
comes to us.
Yeah, once we send it to you,
Perfect.
we intend to post it. It's not intended to change at that point. Even the board should not change it at that point, you know?
And so that brings.
That's the other point that Ms. McGee needed to.
Yes.
Well, it's two things. One is if we stick to this process, we, the staff, should not change it, you know? Unless there's an emergency of some sort, and an emergency, that staff forgetting an issue does not create an emergency for you. So that's not an emergency. But anyway, but if it's an emergency, I will visit with the board president. She can tell me whether I can put it on there or not, you know? And if I have to put it on there, and if we've already posted, we would have to amend the posting, which can be done. Legally, you can still do that. But we're gonna try to control that. But the same occurs in reference to board members, either call the superintendent or send the superintendent items on the agenda. We have a board policy that says that you can put an item on the agenda 7 days prior to the meeting. That policy will need to be amended to whatever the number of days that we have to count back. Yeah, and so, and the intent is to give you, the board, plenty of time to study it, whatever's on the agenda, ask questions, give the staff time to respond to your questions, and so forth. Now, the other thing, and I will visit with Mr. Castillo, the attorney. The practice in the past has been, that when a board member asks a question, I respond, and everybody gets the answers. And recently, we were told we shouldn't be doing that. And so I think we need to discuss that a bit more. The primary, and I'm not the lawyer, Mr. Castillo will have to tell us this, but the primary intent of that law is that there be no deliberation among board members. But I'm not aware that there's anything that prevents us from giving all of you the information that someone asked for. But again, I'm not going to decide that. The attorney will need to decide that. Because if you think about it, let's just say we set up an agenda, Ms. Flores has questions, I give her the answers, but everybody else is left out in the cold until you get to the board meeting. And see, and that's not an efficient way, in my opinion, of conducting this. So like if you were to get the answers, the question and the answers that she asked, then you could ask me. You can't ask her or any other board, but you can ask me for clarification. And I think that's within the legal bounds of the law.
So we get it on a group message, we just don't respond to the group message.
Exactly.
We just email you.
You should
directly.
never respond to a group message to anyone other than the superintendent.
Right, that's, I mean.
You can never respond, you can never hit all
Right.
in response, in other words.
Well, we've got a text going on, but we got to quit.
Well,
Same thing
yeah, we
with the
shouldn't
text.
respond to even a group text.
Oh,
I'm saying if it's a generalization, I really don't think we can get in trouble, honestly, like when it's just about, hey, there's a meeting today, yes. I mean, I don't think we'll get in trouble for that, but we don't want to set up as a habit to be group texting and responding on a group text. We can respond individually, but not on a group text. And then it goes the same for email.
Yeah,
I don't think
group-
that's.
Yeah, group anything creates a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, okay, so I did speak with Mr. O'Hanlon on that, and the way he presented it to me is we can ask the questions, and you can answer them, Dr. Savannah, and your staff. He said you can upload it to the workbook.
Okay,
And
that's good.
so,
That's a good way to do it.
and so,
It can be-
I don't know how that
So it can be.
works for those who get paper.
Well, I think the way it
So
would
I
work,
think you would need to get on the workbook.
well, that's fine. The way it would work, the way I envision it would work would be, in the board book, we've loaded every agenda item. We have also loaded supporting documents for that item. the questions and the answers become another supporting document for that item.
Yes.
That we keep that going. The board book becomes active and it keeps going until we get to the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that way no one's responding to anybody else. It's basically everyone's getting that, basically.
And that's only used by the board members, right?
Yes,
That's
yes.
policy.
And that's fine. I mean, you know, I don't see a problem with using the board book on that, but I think it's a good idea because you mentioned me having questions, which I do, I submit them.
That's
And-
good.
And I do that in order to save time.
Of course, no, that's
At the
good.
meeting, because I figure, I'm gonna have these questions and we have 10 more items to go through, and that's, so at least it clarifies things for me and I know the answers. And the questions I may have, Mr. Ibarra may have, or Ms. Guerra may have as well, and they don't know that has been asked until,
That's correct.
until they get the answer.
Right.
They said, okay, I had that same question, now I know.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think real quick, we need to kind of clarify to the audience what this was, because they're back there thinking that now they're going to present at board meetings till 2 in the morning on reports.
It's
And
not gonna be till 1.
that's honestly not what it was, so.
159.
So the focus, I think, if you allow me,
Yes,
the focus of this governance training was to move our focus in the boardroom from deliberating or discussing or putting focus on things that are not directly related to student outcomes. So what we're going to do as a board is try to reduce all the stuff that we talk about in here that's not related to student outcomes. And we're going to focus on student outcomes. So those other things that normally take up a lot of the time are not going to be taking up a lot of the time anymore. Y'all will be taking up a lot of the time that was allotted for that. So it's not, our intention is not to extend by any means these meetings. Actually our intention is to focus our meetings and spend less time in here and more time with kids. So that's what we went to this course, that's what I took out of it. The overall focus as a district needs to be what the purpose of a district is for, and that's for kids, right? And that's one of the reasons that I became a board member was to impact kids, So what this governance training did is it opened my eyes to how we could run as a board and put our focus on kids. That's all it did. So what we're going to try to do is model that in our boardroom. That's it.
And another thing they told us that the administration was here for the board. We didn't know that. We thought you all were here, you were told to be here or whatever. So another reason to have the workshop was so we could get some things ironed out, and not so you wouldn't have to be dragged down here when you should be at home with your family. I mean, we're here because we decided to run and be on the board. And a lot of you should be at home with your kids or starting on tomorrow's work at school instead of being here for 2 or 3 hours. So that's another reason we had this workshops. The workshops that'll be at the beginning of the week, then 2 weeks later, we'll have the actual board meeting. So we can iron out some stuff and then, because he was surprised at how many boards stayed like 4 or 5 hours. He was thinking at the most 2 hours, and hardly anybody stays 2 hours. So he was kind of helping out to shrink them down, and all these ideas he was giving us was to shrink down the meeting. So that's what we're trying to do. It's not that they're having another meeting, now it's 2 meetings a month that we'll have to attend. We're trying to focus and narrow, like they said, narrow everything down so everything can be going a lot faster. You can go home faster, and us too, so.
But I think he also said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we should not have all our administrators here unless they're here to present. So, sorry, but if that was, I think, the board's decision, whether or not everyone should be here or not. But of course, the superintendent is the one that has to direct them whether they need to be here or not. And I think if the item pertains to their department or their campus, then they need to be here to answer questions. Otherwise, Good night.
And the whole idea that, at least what we learned, or what I got out of the two-day session, was that to become an effective board as we're working towards, like Mr. Rivera said, we must focus our attention in the items that are being presented for us. 50% or more of those items must be involve student outcomes. Okay, everything else we can either get it as a report prior to the meeting, okay, or like we get we get the police report almost on a weekly basis.
Right.
We don't have to spend time on that during board meetings. Okay, we can do that with other departments as well. They can submit that information and it doesn't have to be part of an agenda. Okay?
So what we're going to try to do is that the first Wednesday of the month would be basically a standing workshop that we'll conduct based on what you as a board has told the administration you want us to report on. So we'll need some lead time. For example, you can't tell me February the 15th I want something for the March report, but we need at least a month to 6 weeks of lead time for an in-depth report. If it's something that's not that much in-depth, then yeah, we can probably reduce it, or we can simply send it out, not even have to present it at a meeting.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So that for us that like hard copies,
Yes.
if you could just email the document and we just print out what we need or have a question on, and I have to print out the whole thing, it saves you some paper.
Okay.
Instead of sending a hard copy, I have a printer, I you have a printer, you just copy what you want.
Be happy to do that. What else?
So the whole intent was, I wanted to get 3 focuses today.
You got two.
Okay.
You have two.
We got 2. So is there one more? Is there anyone who wants to put a focus out there?
Wait, what are the two?
Yeah, can you?
One is college readiness
Yeah,
and
Early literacy.
early literacy.
right. That's what I thought.
So what's another one, board members?
Attendance, because
Okay, so let's narrow the attendance. What specific elementary, middle, high school, what is your concern?
I think can you tell us what the average percent of attendance of the campuses?
Elementary is the highest, at about 96, does that
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right? About 96, you're the expert. 96, I think our middle schools are between 94 and 95. Our high school's 93, 92, 91.
That's a little high, sir.
Okay.
It's been hovering at 92 to 89.
Our attendance has dropped
At your middle school?
at
All
All of them?
All levels.
all levels and the high school.
That's 88.
Well, and and I don't know, Angelica, if you want to speak to that about the change in the law.
Right. HB 2398, I think that was summer of 2014, it decriminalized truancy. So we're supposed to treat it more like a social issue. So a lot more is put on the schools. We have 3 truancy specialists in this district. One for the high school specifically, and at the high school, Dr. Hernandez has dedicated an administrator to support that. Mrs. Husband does that. And then at the middle schools and the elementary, we have 2 people, and we basically divided the district by like north-south. So Ms. Sanchez works with the Zamora Kazin and their feeders, and Mr. Dominguez works with Shepherd and Dwight and their feeders. And sometimes we overlap, and right now what we have is we are working with the San Antonio Municipal Court for the 2nd year in a row. Last year they took this over, told us how do we do this. We call in parents, we invite them, we look at interventions. Principals right now, and I do want to commend both Price and Kindred, they've been, using my terms, rocking and rolling with attendance recovery, which is a part of this. And when we move into domain 4, Mrs. Flores, part of what will be judged, will be factored into the accountability, is the attendance rate of the lower grades. So if our principals aren't on their plan right now, their credit recovery is happening. I know you had one on Saturday. Mrs. Martinez is also on it. Hutchins has a real solid plan. And that's just trying to get them in. However, I do want to say, as much as some of our principals are working very hard with this, our parents aren't very cooperative. Just an example, we had 70 invites to the court, 0 showed up. It was an invitation from the municipal court to our parents, like a warning almost, and no one came. So those are the things that we're fighting. We're at the point of, we put in a behavior plan, because attendance is a behavior plan. Some of our parents do not respond, they don't come in. And what I think they think we're trying to get them, it's like, no, we're on your side. What else? We're really doing everything possible. So when we get to the point where we have 2 major dismissals of invitations to come to school, they are now being charged as a criminal case. And our principals have to go to the municipal court. So in addition to daily functions that they're doing, they have to go to court and speak on behalf of their school, of their interventions, of their attempts to see if we can even reach these parents. Specifically, I know one of Christ's students, the parents were assigned a parenting class, an anger management class, because these are some social issues. Children aren't coming to school because mom and dad or mom and boyfriend were fighting, things like that. But right now with attendance, we have taken a dip, especially after the holiday. I'm hoping that with our our alterations to our campus calendar, we won't miss out so much on those heavy hitter days like the day after Halloween, you know. They do us a favor when Halloween starts on a Saturday or a Friday. So the day after Easter is another big day that we have lost things. And I think it was during my era at the high school, there was one day in particular we lost like $78,000 in one day. So what I encourage the principals to do, with her permission, offer incentives. Y'all come in, you get this, and then also during credit recovery, if a child's missed 12 times, they also have the latitude to say, come for 6 hours on a Saturday or 4 hours on a Saturday, and that'll be all your time. The principals have latitude in their plan of how they're going to do it. And right now, those 3 schools that I mentioned have had a lot of success, and I'm sorry about everybody else, I just don't get to everything all the time. But that's what we have going on right now with our attendance, but it is something we're very concerned about. It has gone down.
Excuse me, Ms. Garza, is that shared with the other campuses as well, with these 3 campuses are doing?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, everybody has their plan.
Yes.
Everybody's working their plan.
Yes.
What I'm saying is the success that these campuses are having, is that being shared with the other campuses? Okay.
We try to, as much as possible, when we have principal meetings or in our memos that go out during the week, we mention some of these things, but these already are hard, they're already a challenging parent, so it becomes even more. And even the judge is trying to help us, but they're ignoring court summons. So we have a lot of social issues that we're also working against.
That's some of the things that we were talking about, we really want to start having a parent university to try to educate, our parents on how important it is to go to school every single day. And, sometimes I've met with some parents that, well, it's raining. I'm not going to have my child go to school when it rains. And, we try to, well, ma'am, I understand you don't want them to get sick, but let's think about, and so I know I've met with parents myself. I know Mr. Abundes has as well. And so one thing we were thinking is trying to have like a parent university for community-wide, for them to understand how important it is for kids to be at school every day.
Another great challenge, if I may interject here, is that at elementary, pre-K attendance counts. Yes, pre-K is not a required grade, but once you're enrolled, your attendance counts. And parents are like, well, he was little, and they have to go to school. Special education students who may have some anxiety, we have, Mrs. Sigma and her team, they have a transition plan of, we need to get them to school every day, let's work on this. So there's a lot of, I think sometimes we're reteaching some parents some things that, I know you have to go to work at 6:30, but you have to find somewhere to leave your children until there's an adult to watch them at 7:15 or 7. So, we have challenges, and we're working with it the best that we can to ensure that our kids are safe, too.
I think, if I may, Ms. Castro-Radar, and one of the I think of the DOI meeting said something really interesting. Rackspace has slides for the employees there, and to entice the employees, keep them motivated. And I'm thinking, I can just see a slide at the elementary entrance to the class, to the office, kids sliding and get them inside them, and they get excited and start school. Very school.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so board members, got three of the focus. Post-secondary readiness, literacy and attendance.
And we can devise how to change executives for the next workshop.
So what I will do is for the February 15th agenda, put these for the board to actually officially vote them. And there seems to be a consensus, but clearly the board should vote on them.
But with that, so that board members, do we want to be specific? Remember, our goal has to be, what does our goal have to have?
Well, it needs to have a baseline, a target, a population, and a deadline. So it needs to be pretty specific on how it reads, so that we know how to measure it. Because,
That they know how to measure.
well, so that we can put a goal progress measure in place. So once we have a target and a deadline, and we know where we're starting from, then we can say, okay, every quarter, we want a report, or every 6 months, or whatever. So we do have to define it.
Let us work on this and give you some ideas as to the criteria that we think, you might want information on. Now, I'm not going to be able to send it to you out by Friday, but I will send it out to you.
My Monday?
Well, next week sometime, so you'll have it at least a week before the meeting to consider. And if you have your own thoughts, if you want to just feed them to me by email, feel free to do that. But we'll try to follow that format.
About literacy, are you targeting certain grades, all grades?
I wanted to target first grade.
If we talk about literacy, is it something specific?
Reading. Reading in the first grade level. That's my concern.
So could I suggest, well, I also suggest third grade, and I'll tell you why. At that point, the district has worked with kids for at least 2 years at that point. In the first grade, you basically have 1 year, or depending on what you're measuring, but if you're measuring in the fall, you're measuring basically what the kid brought with him from home, So my suggestion would be third grade, but it could be any grade level, or it could be several grade levels.
See, I think third grade is too late.
Too late.
First, it's a goal. It's something that's attainable. But I want to know where our first graders are starting.
Where they're starting.
Where they're starting,
And
and then how they progress and how they're progressing. That's what I want to know. That, my reports to reflect that.
So maybe what we can look at, and I'm just guessing here, is that maybe, they have to, if they, whatever they're, because we do beginning of the year, and then they have to have, so many words per minute by the middle of the year, and then the 60 words per minute? 60 words per minute is considered on grade level by the end of the year. So something with that for first grade.
Yes.
That's something that we could measure.
That's probably some good verbiage in them, but we just base the GPM on that.
Is there a criteria for what students need to know in order to be promoted from first to second? I mean, are they supposed to be reading at grade level? Are they supposed to be reading at the end of first or the beginning of second? How do these first graders get promoted from first to second? And what's the measurements that's used? What's the tool that's used to determine that? Because if we're sending them on with just X number of words,
Well, that's not,
second grade.
that's one measure. That's not, that's not the entire measure, but that's one measure that you're trying to hold first grade teachers. Because I think what's happened in the past is there was such a focus on third, fourth, and fifth, and there was so much remediation and retutoring and Saturday and this, where and teachers themselves, under the leadership of the principals, are like, well, wait a minute, well, where does kindergarten have, kindergarten should be writing. Will it be, but there is early writing that you can do in kindergarten. What can first graders be doing? What can second graders be doing? So therefore, it's not all on the burden once they come to third grade. And so so that's why one of the expectations we've had is, how much, 85% on grade level by the end of first grade. Now, we use the iStation as one of our measures. But along with that, it's not just, that one measure, it's are they passing their classes? Are they coming to school? It's, student ready, how are they school ready? And we've actually dropped our retention rate pretty significantly. And something that we're gonna share with the cabinet on Monday is the number of retentions that we've had in the past are basically guaranteeing our dropouts in the future. And so right now, we have 65 first-time ninth graders that are already 2 years behind. They're already 2 years outside of their cohort. So that's 60, so the fact for them to stay till they're 20, they're not going to stay until they're 20. And so that's something that we're looking at. I've been gathering, meeting almost every 2 weeks with Gilbert Cavazos. He's the truancy officer with the high school that's been pulling data of our overaged kids, our kids that have repeated more than once. And so with that, we're trying to focus on, instead of catching those kids so late, what can we do in first grade? Let's target, and in addition to that, let's not wait till the end of the year. We should already know who our struggling learners are in the first 4 weeks. We should already know, okay, we need to target this, what RTI needs to be put in place before the end of the year. And so we've really tried to focus on front-loading our support instead of waiting till they fail and then put in the interventions.
Right, so instead of reactive, proactive. But
it's taking some time. We still have a lot of work ahead.
Well, and the goal progress measures that we talk about will directly help you on what you're already trying to do, but it'll focus so that, I think that one of the biggest things that we took out of this, or I did, was that if we put all our focus into something and we get this result, or we can put all our focus into something and get this result, no matter what, we're expending energy and time and effort and money, but we can either get this result for that or get this. So I think what this is doing is trying to focus that so that we get a bigger result and not that. So.
If I can elaborate, I want to go back to the attendance.
Yes.
You were making a comment from Ms. Guthrie about maybe teaching the parents, having something for the parents to teach them on how to deal with the kids and their social issues. We have two very good parenting centers right now that are doing very well. That may be a good venue to use to offer these classes to these parents because it's in their community and it's easy access for them.
I completely agree, Ms. Prado. In fact, we're also thinking us having, in addition to that, if we had a Saturday Parent University Academy, those those students that need credit recovery, if they attend 4 hours, and do Love and Logic and things, from Region 20 and the things that we already offer, that could also help in our, attendance recovery if they come. So I completely agree. We have two very strong parent centers, but we're also trying to see what more can we do, what more can we do.
So real quick, to kind of make sure that we understand what we're trying to do, I think selecting inputs is normally y'all's job, so the inputs that we use to achieve whatever it is we're trying to achieve, and the board's objective is to select the outcome. So the outcome is what we probably need to be working on specifically, and we can set, you want to target first grade, but I think we need to put some sort of measurement on what you're wanting to gain in a year out of first grade reading, if that's, what one of the goals is going to be.
Right.
So that we define the outcome, they take their inputs, and we measure the output. So,
I agree.
I agree also with what you said earlier, that they kind of have to give us some examples.
Yeah, some ideas.
Some ideas. Again, I'm not a first grade teacher.
Right.
I've never worked with data.
Yeah,
They're the experts, so they can give me an idea of what is they're already doing, or what it is that maybe I'm wanting to measure.
Sure.
Right. What's a well-rounded
what you want them to give us the outcome.
Well,
To work together, to collaborate.
we probably would give you some different options for outcomes. y'all decide out of those outcomes we identify for you, which are, you feel are the most important, or we will frankly put emphasis on why we think these are important, or why this is more important than others, you know? The other thing is, I mean, just talk to our elementary principals or elementary teachers to identify, help us identify some of those outcomes, you know?
Well, so I just want to make sure that we remember, I mean, the board is supposed to be community one step down, right?
Right.
Not administration one step up.
Correct.
So we take what the community is asking, and if that is, I want my first graders to be X by the end of the year, then that's what we tell them, and then that's what they figure out how to input that. We measure it along the time frame. So I just want to make sure that, you know, we're the vision, we've set the parameter, and I'd like us to start doing that so that next year, we're already kind of in that flow.
Sure. Okay.
Anything else? Is there any objection to closing the meeting? Adjourning the meeting?
I need a little bit more guidance
Okay,
when we say the focus for college readiness, because there's very many measures there's SAT, there's ACT, there's dual credit, there's TSI for getting into dual credit. Some students who did not do well on the SAT, on that measure, actually do better on the AccuPlacer, which is also considered college ready. So with there's the number of AP courses, CTE, and so just if you could give us a little bit of and I have it right here too.
Yes, I'm looking at the advanced course, the dual credit course.
Now, are you asking for all grades, or is there a specific grade?
When these students start taking advanced courses, they start in the 9th grade, don't they? Okay.
Some kids, yes.
Dual credit usually begins what, in the 11th grade? 10?
Right, and now with our early college students, and this is from this is a year in the rear. So
Right.
2014-15 is when we first started, we didn't implement until we had our first early college. So we could do completion of 2 or more advanced. We can do anything, I just want to know so we can target what data we can pull.
Well, we're talking about when college-ready graduates tells us here, the English and mathematics portions,
Got it.
or both. That's where we're failing,
Got it.
okay?
So if I'm looking.
When I'm looking at grades 9 through 12, because if we're already having students doing advanced credit or dual courses, credit courses, and if with our college-ready program, right, at the high school right now, are we beginning them in the 9th grade? Then that's a start.
And so, it does,
So
it depends on what
all we-
pathway they choose.
What pathway?
So if they choose the early college pathway, then yes, that group of students will be taking one college class their freshman year. If they're core complete, those students will be taking a college class until their 10th or 11th grade year.
Right.
If their CTE pathway,
Right.
it might be 12, it might be a certification, so it wouldn't be a dual, it may not necessarily be a dual credit class because they're on a pathway for certification
For
of a
that, for
business
vocation.
industry. Right. But CTE is also measured as.
It is measured.
It is, so that's why I'm saying that we need to stay, we want X, Y, Z to happen within this timeframe. That way they know exactly how to measure.
And so some things we have put in place under Dr. Savetta's leadership is now we pay for the SAT for all 11th graders. We pay for the PSAT for all. So those are, now one thing I'm looking at doing now is adding the ACT to that. Just about my money, shake the money tree. But those are some things that we just put into place, I want to say, 2 years. And so.
And then Ms. Bassler, does everybody take it?
If they're there that day, they take it. Not all 10th graders, if they're there that day.
Then that could be a goal.
Yes.
That could be a specific goal.
I see.
All college
Is
bound.
Increase participation in PSAT.
Yes,
increase
there you go.
participation in SAT.
Yes.
By
But
X
that's
amount, by X time. You know what I mean? That's it.
That's how specific we need to be in setting that
The
goal.
thing is that if we can do that with a few goals and then we attain them, then we kick in another goal.
Yes.
And so that we're
So take
focused.
the nudge
and we're-
back, board members, and so, okay. So what we're doing right now is we're setting goals, but we're not going to be reported on very quickly. This is a workshop that's going to be happening, and so it may take us to another meeting just to come up with one goal.
Yes.
Because then
Or
we have to
three.
come up with 3 progress measures to that goal, okay? So this is not something that you're going to have to
Put on the agenda next.
come back right away.
I don't think so.
Okay, because it's progress, okay? And so, board members, your homework for the next meeting is, we have 3 focus areas, and so now we need to set goals, a specific goal, okay? So based on the handouts that we received, each one of us should have a goal for each of these. And then as a board, we will decide which of those goals is going to be picked. Okay? And then after we get that goal, then we're going to have to choose progress measures. And then the administration will determine on our the inputs and comments. Okay? Is that okay?
Based on this that was given to us.
So for the February 15th meeting, we basically have an agenda item for y'all to discuss and possible action. And you're ready to vote on it at that time. If you're not, you bring it back and discuss it more later.
Yeah.
But you won't be able to adopt them unless it's on the agenda for possible action.
That is correct. So that way y'all know exactly what we're trying to, what our,
And that's fine.
Madam Chair, move to adjourn.
okay. So here's a second.
Second.
Okay.
I move to our meeting.
8:06.
That's all right.
There you go.
There's only one item.
I like Oxford on
Nice to meet you.
I understand the rationale, but.
Hey,
No,
somebody did his homework. He's throwing out all these things that I was like, okay, I forgot that. It's been 3 weeks.
We're right, the kids are not there.
yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Good night.
Good night.
No, I look forward to this workshop. It helps us to sit.
Is there any line?
Yes.